Hello and welcome. My name's Jack Delosa from The Entourage, and today we're lucky enough to be joined by Mick Lubinskas here at the Kochie Business Builders headquarters in Milsons Point. Mick's the co-founder of Pollenizer, which is an Australia-based, globally focused tech incubator with a number of successful startups and a number of successful case studies coming out of the Australian startup scene in the last couple of years. So Mick, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now Mick, before we get into it, tell us quickly, I know you guys have a very concise way of explaining exactly what Pollenizer does. What is it that you guys do?
The simplest way to understand it is we take ideas for new startups, we start the businesses, we grow them, and then we exit them. So that's how we return money to our Pollenizer investors.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm sure everybody probably watching this video is familiar with the Spreets case study. Such a successful example of what you guys enable in action. Just walk us through what happened there with the Spreets play.
Well, I think the backstory is as interesting as the success story. I've known Dean McAvoy for a number of years, 6 or 7 years. He worked on a previous business called Booking Angel, which was a restaurant technology business. And we worked with Dean on that business, but it didn't succeed. The next day, Dean rocked back up into the office, chatted to Phil and said, I want to go again. I want to create a new business. This group buying thing, I think it's got legs. It was very early days still in group buying. This was December 2009. And Dean and Phil decided to have a crack at creating a group buying business here in Australia. So Dean jumped on the phone and sold 10 deals straight away. We built the smallest possible MVP we could. We launched it in 31 days and we made about $10,000 in our first couple of days.
Wow.
So we knew we were onto something. 12 weeks later, we raised $1.2 million in capital from Europe. Unfortunately, couldn't find any local investors to support it, which is a part of the challenge. And then within 13 months of the original idea conversation, Yahoo acquired the whole business of Spreets.
Absolutely, and you're comfortable sharing us what the publicised price tag was on that deal?
It was never publicised directly, but the CEO of Yahoo at the time, Rowan Lund, said it was in the vicinity of $40 million.
Yeah, brilliant. So such a successful case study to achieve that result in 13 months is obviously a tribute to Spreets, to Pollenizer, to the investors, everyone in the ecosystem.
Yeah, look, there was a chunk of luck that happened with that business, but there was also a lot of hard work that went into creating the luck.
Yeah.
Chris Hitchen, the guy who introduced us to the investor, was a relationship we'd built for 3 years. We'd built a relationship with Yahoo. We supported Dean on a previous business that failed. We'd built a team of people who were able to work on the Spreets business there day one. So people on the outside might look at it and say, well, you jumped on the bandwagon of group buying, but it was a lot of hard work that came together, thankful to a lot of really committed people.
Absolutely. And you guys are really at the crux of the startup space, particularly when it comes to capital raising and the investment that's going on across that landscape. How is that, you mentioned that with the Spreets business, for instance, you had to go to Europe. How's the landscape today with regards to investors being okay with investing in early stage businesses?
Well, look, Pollenizer was 5 years old last week, which is really exciting and a long, long time in startup land.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. In dog years, I guess, or startup years, it must be at least 50 years old. But in that 5 years, there's been dramatic changes. But firstly, there was the GFC and money went hiding. There's always been capital available. There's always been angels and some venture capital. But it's always been quite fragmented and hard to find. And what we did, a number of people got together and started building on the ecosystem, establishing a track record, establishing some wins, some reliability, and that's actually brought out a number of investors who are increasingly interested in this tech space. I think globally there's no doubting that companies like Apple, Google, Instagram, and 100 other startups, mainly in Silicon Valley, Israel, Asia and Europe, have had some amazing successes. And here in Australia, we've had Atlassian, Campaign Monitor, 99 Designs, Retail Me Not. We've had some really good wins. And that's just given these investors some more confidence and faith and excitement about the opportunities in the tech space. So I think this 2013 is going to be the year of the startup here in Australia. I think there's going to be, my goal is to bring another 500 or even 1,000 new investors to make their first tech investment into a pooled entity like Pollenizer or directly into a company.
Absolutely, and as you say, the sentiment toward investing in startups has come a long way in the last 5 years. What do you think has caused that shift? Why is startup businesses, early stage businesses, seed stage companies, why are they becoming increasingly attractive to investors?
I think there's a lot of reasons. Firstly, in terms of the cost to develop these businesses is quite low. So you don't need millions of dollars to put your first product in front of a customer. You can do it literally for free, like with Spritz, making a call and selling it in advance, or you can do it for under $100,000. So that's attractive as well, small amounts of capital. Plus distribution, access to customers has never been easier. Through Apple, Google, Facebook, a number of other ways, through Salesforce APIs, etc., you're able to access a massive amount of customers. So development costs are low, customer acquisition costs can be low. It's still crazy hard work. You're doing something new, something no one's ever done before, but those things have significantly reduced the risks and the opportunity cost of time, which is one of the key things. One of the biggest shifts in investor sentiment is actually Australia. We're a small population, but we punch way above our weight in terms of producing successful companies. And we've had a lot of big VC firms from around the world look at Australia as a opportunity to capture some of that high-tech growth.
Absolutely. And you know, what I want to talk to you about a little bit later on in the chat is some of your philosophies around how do we succeed in the startup phase. Before we get to that, one of the things that I find really compelling about Pollenizer is that you guys are super clear on what you do, where you play, and what you don't do and where you don't play. Can we just talk through now that model that I know you guys have developed, and we'll bring it up on the screen as we talk through it.
Yep.
By way of where do we play, why do we play there, and what are we trying to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's times when we pursue businesses which are lower risk, like Spritz, known business model in a new market. But the majority of the time, we're actually looking for disruptive plays. We're looking for game-changing opportunities to capture really, really, really big growth. So what you're talking about there is actually a massive amount of change and building a business no one's ever built before. So the only thing we know when we start is we're going to make hundreds, if not thousands of mistakes in learning how this new business should work. And there's two ways to do that: slowly and expensively, or do them quick and cheap. And that's our philosophy. So I would much rather work on a $1 million idea that I can test quick rather than a $1 trillion idea that's going to take me a couple of years to test, because the risk is just too high in terms of the time. So that's a key question for Pollenizer is there a vision big enough to pursue, and is this a business we can actually test very quick? Can we learn the lessons fast enough to get it working? So that's the first thing. Then we test them fast. So the record at Pollenizer is 42 minutes to a paying customer. So we started a business, 42 minutes later we had a paying customer. Through manual tools, reaching out, getting a customer, paying through PayPal, via email, using another tool to actually provide the service. Clunky, non-scalable, non-effective really, but we had a customer, we got the product, we started the lessons that we need to learn to make that business a success.
I remember last time we went for coffee, you were telling me about, and I might have the numbers wrong, but there was a gentleman that came to you, he'd had an idea, I think it was about 8 months or so, he'd been tinkering with the idea, and then within 18 hours of having a discussion with you guys, he had a landing page, he was testing traffic, and you know, he had some stats to sort of start measuring.
That's right.
And he said, you know, what I was thinking about in 8 months, you guys were able to actualise in 18 hours.
Yeah, it's key. We just know, number one, we know the tools to be able to test those things fast, but we're also comfortable with failure.
Yeah.
You've got to recognise, one of my favourite stories around this is WD-40, which stands for water displacement number 40. 39 failures on the way to a big success. And we just have that in mind to start with. And once you get comfortable with that, just bring on the failures. So you want to do them as quickly as you can. So that's a really key part of actually building a business that works.
Absolutely. And then, so you guys pick up businesses, preferably at the seed stage, correct me if I'm wrong, and then there's an element, there comes a time in the business life cycle where you guys go, okay, now we sort of take a backwards seed, if you like, and they go into an angel round or whatever it is. Just run us through, on the business life cycle, where is it the Pollenizer playing? Right
at the start. So our business is about turning ideas into a business. So that's where a lot of people really struggle. They procrastinate, they try to do too much analysis. We just put products in front of customers a number of times to get something working. So we want to be right there day one because we can move really fast. Our goal is to get it working and get the capital, the team in place to then take the business to let the business go to the next level. Absolutely. So Mo Generation is a great example of that.
Yep.
Mo Generation is a business now 4.5 years old, profitable, great team around it. But when it started, it was two passionate co-founders just when the iPhone was just getting started, and they wanted to build a business in this space. They didn't even really know exactly what it was. We pulled in some investors, got them in our office, gave them a seat, helped them get started, and we've really just supported them over the time. Now they've raised a lot of capital, great team around them, and heading towards a really big success. So absolutely, we want to just get it working and let them get on the job of building their business.
Absolutely. So you guys are, in a sense, I'm a person, I might have a bit of a business background, but I've got an idea, I want help. How do I commercialise it? How do I turn it into a business? I come to you guys and you guys help enable that process in the early days.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We want to put together all the components to maximise the chance of a business being successful. So we might say, right, you're a great salesman, you've got domain experience, you need an engineer. And we need an engineer who's passionate about your idea. We need a little bit of capital. We need some capital to pay some bills, to pay some customer acquisition. Let's find an investor to co-invest with Pollenizer to help this business get started. And then you come in the Pollenizer office, we give you process, tools, knowledge and training to, maximise your chance of turning that idea into a successful business.
And having done that for 5 years across so many different startups, you guys have put that into something, I love the name of it, Startup Science, which is what you encapsulate in the book that you guys released in December, which is the Startup Focus. Talk to us about some of the philosophies and methodologies that are outlined in this book that you believe are so critical to success in the startup phase.
The first thing to talk about is the science. Obviously, a lot of people look at startups and think it's random people in garages who write lines of code and magically there's a business. And they see the Facebook movie and the guy's got a beer, he writes some things and all of a sudden it's $1 billion company. And what we know actually is that it's a lot of hard work, but it can be more predictable than people think. So it's not a pure science in terms that it's absolutely mathematically guaranteed, but you can be a lot more scientific in your approach. Work out how to actually test your learnings. How do you actually get metrics and then fold that feedback into new products? Thinking about the team, thinking scientifically about the team, thinking about the future of the company, what capital requirements are going to be. You can be a lot more scientific about it. And again, the whole goal of the science is to increase the chance of success. So we want to pursue $1 billion ideas. We just don't want to take massive amounts of risk with it. And if we can go from the 1% success rates of the market and get 10, 20% success rates, then we're going to be massively overachieving. So that's a key part of that science, is about having a predictable approach of startups. The key, and then the name of the book again is Focus, and it's a big lesson I learned in my first year at Pollenizer, was the challenge entrepreneurs face in taking a massive vision and then starting. So you've got this beautiful vision which is everyone in the world's using it, everyone's loving it, it's making lots of money. I often describe it as the SCG on Grand Final Day. It's full and it's crazy and there's bands but when you start your startup, it's more like the SCG on Tuesday morning about 11 o'clock. It's pretty boring and it's empty, no one's there,
and
there's
lonely.
and very lonely. So we'd say we'll start small and start with the smallest thing you can possibly get in front of a customer, because that's going to speed up the learning process. Most businesses, and I was involved in a number of businesses previously, I came in late, but they'd spent 3 years sometimes developing a product, and then they put it in front of a customer. That's the first time they find out if anyone actually wants it. And research can't do that for you. You've got to actually put it in front of. So Focus is about focusing down on a small group of customers, one customer, one product, one business model, as fast as you possibly can. And if you do that, your speed of learning just gets faster and faster. You're just more likely to produce a success.
Absolutely. And as you know, through the Entourage community and the MBE community, we've got a business community of now about 18,000 small business owners, startup business owners. And speaking and having a community like that, we've identified that often the number one glass ceiling, if you like, on these early stage businesses is a lack of focus, because as you know, it's so tricky to stay focused a lot of the time. So what is the advice you give for these startup stage businesses? How do we best stay focused? How do we not get distracted with the shiny things?
Well, I struggle with that too. I'm an entrepreneur. Pollenizer is a company that starts multiple businesses, so I've sort of got lack of focus built in. But the key thing is, if you're going to do something, you've got to focus your attention on it. And I also say focus the business on a smaller amount of things. So one of the things that I find is really useful is to have an external person who's not involved in the day-to-day. Because when you're in the day-to-day, it's easy to be distracted by another feature you can add, another customer you can go after, another opportunity. Having someone you trust who's got a vested interest in the business to slap you around the head and say, get back and stay focused, really helps. Because in the 100 hours you're an entrepreneur working on your business, Sometimes you want a bit of variety, and sometimes it's easy to think, well, this sounds really hard, the grass looks greener over there. But stay focused. Just do whatever you can to stay focused.
And it is a bit of a discipline, isn't it? A lot of the time, we learn to focus by feeling the pain of not focusing. And it's not until you get to the point where you go, I'm doing way too many things, I need to just cut back. You know, every year for the last 5 years, I've done less.
Yep.
And in doing less, I've been able to do more.
It is impossible to actually teach that before you've actually gone through the process.
Totally.
It's why I tell every tech entrepreneur just to launch. I don't care where you're at with your product. I don't care if it's a quarter finished, 99% finished. Launch it today. You start the learning process after you launch. So launch it to someone. I don't care if it's one person, your mother, your next door neighbour. Launch it to someone, and that starts the learning process. Because then you're on the other side. You look back and go, gosh, I really didn't need those 3 things I added, and that's not important. That's when you can start thinking about what you should focus on. So that's tough. That's part of the value Pollenizer wants to bring, is our many years experience and many times learning the lessons the hard way, and help every new entrepreneur, again, increase their chance of success.
Absolutely. So start quick, start lean, go to market, and start learning the lessons.
Yep, get moving.
Love it. Now, you know, there are so many opportunities as a seed stage, startup stage entrepreneur. If I'm not that person, I'm not the person with the idea, how do I participate in the startup scene? How do I participate in what Mick and Phil are putting together at Pollenizer?
Look, I think there's a massive global opportunity to build these really great technology companies, and I think there's lots of ways to participate. One of the realities is, because of the risk involved, backing one company is crazy. So just picking one company and hoping that company wins is very, very risky.
Yeah.
The best way is to have a pooled approach, and the way to do that is to bring a number of investors together and create a syndicate or consortium, or to get involved in a early stage pooled venture group such as Pollenizer. So what we're able to provide to investors is a way to put a small amount of money, spread it across 10, 20, 30 startups over the next 5 years, and have exposure across all of those. You get to be a part of a network, you get to learn about the investments, you don't have to worry about picking them or looking after them every day, which obviously across 20 companies would be just insane as well. So that's a big part of the advantage, is a small amount early and then back the winners as they go through.
And you guys have some an amazing pool of investors, from Matt Rockman, who built Seek, and it's now at a market cap of about $2 billion, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And right now you're in the middle of a capital raising. I understand there's a bit of urgency around this one because it's about to close. But can you tell us a little bit about that for anyone who might want to participate?
Absolutely. So we were really lucky to have a lot of support from some great people in the tech industry for our whole life of Pollenizer. And partway along, we had a number of those people get involved through an investment. So Mike and Scott from Atlassian, the guys from Matt Rockman from some Seek, some of the team from Hitwise. So we've had an amazing array of very smart, hard-working entrepreneurs who are creating the ecosystem as well. And we got to the point where we realised there's a next bank of people who would like to get involved, but they're not at that level. They don't get that sort of deal flow. They don't get the calls on the best deals. So part of what Pollenizer's done this year is to do a capital raising and allow another 50, 100, 200 investors to make their first tech investment. I want a great, thriving and wonderfully vibrant tech industry in 10 years' time, and to do that we need to allow that next batch of investors to make their first tech investment today. So we're really excited to be doing that. We're really optimistic about the landscape in Australia. We've got a strong economy, great access to Asia, which is growing really well, great respect from USA, and we've got the strong batch of companies who have led the way, the Atlassians, the Campaign Monitors, 99 Designs.
Absolutely. Mick Lebinskas, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Jack.
Appreciate that. So, if you're a seed stage entrepreneur with an idea and you'd like to help commercialise it, absolutely go and talk to Mick and Phil at Pollenizer. They are the masters in the startup sciences. How do we turn that into a business? And also, if you're an investor or not and you're just looking to participate in the startup scene without necessarily getting your hands dirty with all the headaches that come with it, give them a call as well, as they're currently going through a very successful capital raising internationally.